Time again, Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting. Oh, let him play.
You bet one bone to win 19. What site do you use where you can actually bet $1?
They let you do 50-cent bets.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah, literally, like he dropped Superman down like the drain, comes out. He's like, God damn it, Superman. I don't know, honey. I don't know where he got that from.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City.
Part of the DITCOW Sports Network.
Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans, and a pleasure to have you here for the Big Football Show. Good to have you with us from the Dave in the City studios at the home of champions Southern California. It's been busy today for yours truly, but I hope you're doing all right out there, and we're ready to do another football show. I do want to announce a couple things at the top. I know that our friend Ron has a personal situation, so he won't be with us for the foreseeable future, at least on the air, but we'll be hearing his picks each night as we go through the rest of the season. I think he'll be back. It's just that I don't have an entire read as to when. But we'll make things work, I think, and I think we're wishing him the best and his family the best as well. So all the best. So let's go and bring in the folks we have tonight as we get into another football picks. We're gonna just get right into this. I'm not gonna waste any time. But boy, what an incredible moment we have here with big upset in the top 25 this weekend, and also some upsets on the NFL side as well, and a thriller in Santa Clara, and a thriller in Kansas City. I mean, the NFL's off to a blazing start with all sorts of close games and big finishes, and our picks rolling right alongside with them. It's been a good ride for us so far. Let's see if we can continue the hot streak. Let's hit it. All right, football picks, week number 5. Let's do it. Good to have us back. Big week for the two folks on the air with us tonight. I mean, Andy and John, both doing really well. 5-1 for both of them as they continue to make moves here in our season contest. And just behind is me, Dave, at 2-2. Ron was 1-3 for week number 4. And the massive number of guest picks by Tom in New Jersey did all right. They went 4-4. He was awarded 8 guest picks because we did not have guest picks back in week 2. So he made up the difference with his picks. His bonus pick also hit too, by the way. The bonus pick was Carolina -8. He got that as well. So the standings after 4 weeks, we have John. That's not right. John is 11-3. Dave is 8-4. I can fix that. Dave is actually not that record either. Just easy fix. I know what to fix. I can fix this. Hold on just a second, everybody. Okay. There we go. John is 11-3. Dave is 10-4. Andy is 8-6. Ron is 7-7. The guest picks are 5-8-1. Those are the accurate up to the minute standings. So John, really just having a great start to the season, and I'm not too far back, and the other two of us are not too far back either. So we're in a good spot. I think we're good to go here as we go and start this program and talk about all the action in football this week. And I do want to thank you, Andy and John, for starting a little later tonight. I appreciate that. I mean, it's just my Mongo self forgetting to do the picks. But let's start with Andy. Andy, welcome back to the show. How's it going tonight?
Good to be on the show. October is right around the corner. We got a lot of baseball on the brain. We're a Yankee fan tonight for gambling purposes. Everyone's a Yankee fan deep down, but got football, baseball, Ryder Cup hangover. It's all good. It's all good.
You know, Andy, here's my degenerate moment of the week. I took the Nationals team total over 5.5 in the game against Colorado. They've been sitting on 5 runs since the 3rd inning. I mean, listen, I mean, I know that's a stupid bet, but that's kind of tough if they just sit on 5 runs for 5 innings. That's just not fun. But
maybe that ship will come in as we do this show.
Yeah, you're right. We got one more inning, one more chance at it. Love the
also free Starbucks day, Dave. Did you get a free coffee?
Happy National Coffee Day, everybody. I just couldn't leave this home office today. Just too many little things kept getting in the way. But if there's a Starbucks that's open after like 8 o'clock local time, I'm going to go have in on that because I want a free coffee. How's your free coffee?
It's good.
Nice.
It's good.
What's your blend?
I'm thinking of Leo.
Aye. I love that. That's a good call. All right, so let's bring in John to the program too. John, good to have you back as well. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well, Dave. Yeah, thanks for having us back on. All of our best to Ron, obviously, with the family situation he's going through. Exciting week in both NFL and college football, so glad to get into all of it. My degenerate moment of the week is that I barely watched any of the Ryder Cup, yet I just put in multiple top 10 and top 20 bets for the Sanderson Farms Championship that starts tomorrow. So, you can't get away from the Sheeran golf wagers that I will be placing here. But yeah, good to talk about football for sure. And isn't Starbucks open 24 hours? I mean, at least
some of them are.
Where I live, it's Dunkin' Donuts is like, there's one on every corner and they're open all hours of the night. So
right.
I don't know if that's out there with you guys, but I actually did not go to Dunkin' today, so I'm disappointed. I could have gotten free coffee, but alas.
Yeah. Oh, Dunkin's a good call too. There's a Dunkin' near me as well. I'll check on them after the show. We'll see. Kevin's in the chat tonight. Kevin on the Cape says, I need to get in on this guest pick scenario. Kev, next week, man. Make it happen. Come message me. Let me know. So meanwhile, let's talk about what happened last week in football. And it was quite a lot. Let's be honest. Like it was a big week in the NFL. And if you look at what happened last week, it was just incredible. A lot of finishes, and John, I'm sure you were close to the scene. I mean, you were close to it hit close to you because you're looking at a Packer team that came off that was not favored. They were a 3.5-point underdog. Went into San Francisco, really Santa Clara, and then played a really great game. Like it was really a fun one, and the finish was amazing. But give it to Mason Crosby for the kick at the end. I don't know what the defense was by San Francisco ending that game, but that doesn't concern you because you're happy to take the result. But it was overall just another incredible week in the NFL. So I wanted to get your thoughts on last week's action. John, you got me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Oh, I don't know if you have me. It says my internet is not too great right now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just basically saying a big win for the Packers last week, and
definitely.
I'll give it to you for your thoughts.
Just about that game or the week in general?
The week.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll start there. I obviously was not very pleased with the week 1 performance from Green Bay, but again, and I think we just chalk it up to the fact that they were basically playing third stringers in all their preseason games. Literally no starters played any minutes, and it really showed in that first game against the Saints. They just were not into the game at all. Kind of a sluggish half against the Lions in week 2, but then they really opened things up after halftime. Rodgers started to get into a rhythm. The defense the Lions were playing, that cover 2, just kind of forced them to kind of check it down, run the ball, just kind of take like little chunks at a time, and then finally got them out of it and started throwing down the field a little bit. And then Sunday night, it was just vintage Aaron Rodgers performance. I mean, just on point with all of his passes. Play calling was excellent. And obviously vintage Aaron Rodgers there at the end. Like once the Niners were getting down there towards the goal line, I was saying to myself, okay, well, I don't want them to score, but I kind of do at the same time because, you just got to leave Aaron enough time, and 37 seconds and no timeouts and 40 yards to go. I mean, that was basically all he needed at that point to go down the field and make those throws to Adams. And Crosby, man, he's as clutch as it comes. So just a great win. And I wouldn't say they stole it. I mean, at that point, when the Niners scored, they kind of stole the win because, I've seen that many times where, Rodgers doesn't, take a sack, or he might throw it away, and everyone's, Rodgers isn't clutch, but I mean he got it done. But if you watch the whole game, I think you could say that the Packers were the better team. But for most of the night, I mean the officials were just absolutely horrible. Jerome Boger, he's just completely incompetent. There was a couple of roughing the passer calls that were mind-boggling, and then Devontae Adams gets his brain scrambled on a catch over the middle, and they don't throw a flag on that. It was just and then there was like a tripping call. I've never seen that before in the NFL. That extended a drive. So the refs, people like to bitch and moan about how the refs love the Packers. Well, they certainly didn't love them on Sunday night. So that was they had to overcome that. So their defense actually, I think, played much, much better than the first 2 games. And I had some concerns heading in, obviously, how they look, but maybe they're starting to get the new scheme from the new defensive coordinator, starting to get that down. So they played much better, and we'll see if they can keep that going forward. But definitely the prospects for the Packers are much better, I think, in my opinion, than they were, say, 2 weeks ago. I guess for the other games, I don't know if Dave, can you guys still hear me? I lost.
Yeah, I still hear you. Yep.
Or not.
Still hear you.
Okay, good. It looks like I was frozen for a second. So some of the other games, I mean, obviously the Chiefs-Chargers game was the one of the early games that everyone was paying attention to. And just the Chiefs just continue their struggles with, covering spreads and even lost outright in this game. And their defense just continues to be a major liability. And Herbert got the job done and just really took control of the game from the start. I'm trying to think of some of these other early games. Dave, you mind putting up the scoreboard there for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on, let me just get that back.
What happened on Sunday?
Let's see. Which game were you looking at? Let's see. Oh, the Charger game.
There we go.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then, of course, the Ravens game, that was the other wild one of the early window where it looks like the Ravens, they had lost, and it was like 4th and 20, and Detroit somehow rushes just 3 guys, and they get the first down. And then eventually Tucker kicks a 66-yard field goal that barely hits the crossbar and goes in, and really shouldn't have happened. There was a blatant delay of game right before then that was missed. Should have been a 70-yard kick, and obviously he wouldn't have made it. So that was kind of the other really interesting game of the early window. You had a few blowouts there. I mean, the Bears, I think, had 50 yards of offense. So Cleveland just kind of routed them. Big Ben looks so washed up. Some of those clips I'm seeing on Twitter, unbelievable. Dave, you're supposed to be beside yourself. They should have cut bait with this guy at the end of the offseason. Like, he clearly either doesn't look motivated or is just completely washed up. But I would say there might be a dangerous team heading into Green Bay this Sunday. We'll see. But I'll let Andy touch on some of the other games. But it was a very interesting.
It really was, John. And just speaking on the Steelers point, I mean, a lot of people were yelling at the Steelers to do something about that. Like, draft somebody. Prepare for this situation. And I don't know what the reason was for them not doing it, whether they were just too loyal or they just didn't want to deal with having with a cap hit that might incur if you were to release him, or they didn't want to put the effort to make a trade. I don't understand what's going on over there. Like, it's kind of a tough. I just think that they really, listen, I was kind of like, you know what, this team's still pretty good. Their defense is still pretty good. I wasn't killing them at the time, but a lot of people were. And a lot of people were right. And now look at them. They look terrible. And it's funny because, Andy, if we get you back on screen for a second, I mean, you were saying to us that the Steelers were a pretty decent chance to be at least 500 this year. And I agreed with you. I thought so too. What I've seen from the first 3 weeks has been just abysmal. I'm incredibly disappointed. Like, I just didn't think it was going to be this bad. And Ben is questionable for this weekend's game. I don't think people are going to be losing much sleep over him not playing. He's just been so brutal. So anyway, with that in mind and all the other good stuff in the league, Andy, let's get your thoughts on last week's action.
I'm not worried yet. Tomlin's got this, but it is funny. Like, I might actually take Pittsburgh this Sunday. It's like a classic Tomlin spot. I'm going to kind of copy the Cliff Kingsbury checker theory. Like, you feel better taking Tomlin as a dog than you do taking Tomlin as a favorite because of their history of kind of playing up or down to their opponent. And this year, yeah, Ben's looked old. Their offensive line looks atrocious, but they've covered as a dog against the Bills, and then they've lost outright as favorites against the Raiders and the Bengals. And now they are, 6.5 point underdogs against Green Bay. But we'll see. We got a long time before Sunday. That's the Nance game. I could see myself taking the Steelers plus 6.5 and then the Packers on the money line in a parlay just to they get the best of both worlds in that instance. So we'll see what happens. I'd like to just quickly talk about, the whole Green Bay situation. Yeah, newsflash, Aaron Rodgers still good at football, even when he does kind of look mopey and when he just looks like he's missing the guy from the drum movie. But he's fine. He's good. What's funny is as bad as they looked week 1 against the Saints, and as John mentioned, like they might have gone maybe 40% during the preseason. Like when the Pats were at their pinnacle with Brady and Belichick, like the media loved harping on the fact that Belichick used the first 4 weeks of the regular season as like his test kitchen, and they had plenty of September clunkers. But when another team does it, it's like they just don't get the benefit of the doubt. And it seems like what LaFleur and Rodgers did week 1 was exactly that. Like, let's iron out our kinks now. We got 16 more games. Like, it's okay. And based on what we've seen so far from the other teams in that division, the Lions aren't going anywhere. The Bears are just an absolute disaster. And the Vikings look good, but the Vikings defense hasn't stopped anybody yet. So I think Green Bay is going to be okay. Hot take. But rest of the league, I was looking it up. I'm not trying to be rude like Mike looking on his phone. It's just because my other screens are allocated with games. So, John mentioned the Chiefs like inability to cover games, and they are on like some horrid stretch where like I think they're like 111 against the spread in their last 12 or something like that. But reaching beyond that, the last game that they've won by double figures, I'm not going to count the AFC Championship game against Buffalo because Buffalo looked like they were a little deer in the headlights in that game. But the last regular season game they won by double digits was against the Jets on November 1st, 35-9. And then since then, every game in the regular season has been close.
Wow.
31, 33-31, 27-24, 22-16, 33-27, 32-29, 17-14. And then what we've seen so far this year. So the Chiefs, obviously their offense is still top notch, but their defense allows for the other teams to stay in it. And as much as we like to make fun of Philadelphia, I think they can keep it close this Sunday. I don't think I'll take Philadelphia, but there's what the Chiefs have shown you in recent history is their inability to put people away. So
Yeah.
Something to keep an eye on. I think the other teams, congratulations, Yachts, but those other teams, they get up for these games. They want to beat Mahomes. They want to beat the Chiefs. So I think that's what's been going on. The other games, Seattle, Minnesota. Seattle is, if you look at their second halves this year, I don't think they've actually scored like more than they didn't score in the second half against Minnesota. I'm pretty sure they didn't do much week 2. And who they play week 2? Funhouse time.
Week 2, wasn't it? Was that Tennessee or was that? I think it was
Tennessee. Yeah, they played like craps week 2 against Tennessee, and they didn't do much week 1 against the Colts. So whatever they just go into coma mode, and scary for Seattle because how good the NFC West is. They got San Francisco this Sunday, and then a short week against the Rams. So that division's really tough. So Seattle's got to figure it out. Some of the other games, we can talk about the Broncos down the road. I'm actually a Bridgewater guy. I think we're all Bridgewater guys. If you like betting on teams that cover spread, Bridgewater covers spread. I mean, they've been gifted the schedule like with the Jets and the Giants as first two games. I mean, no wonder why they're 3-0. But then it gets a little more real against the Ravens. But then again, the Ravens had to hang on for dear life and get the kick of a lifetime from Justin Tucker to beat Detroit. So still don't really know what to make out of the Ravens this year. John mentioned that the Raider-Dolphin game. It feels like I don't think the Raiders are really 3-0. I mean, obviously they are 3-0, but the way that they've played these games, they're just they're wonky games. I feel like both Miami and Las Vegas play wonky games, and when you put them together, it's just wonky on top of, Shern on top of Shern, wonky on top of wonky. And we've seen that 2 games in a row, the Christmas game last year, and then this game, which did not want to end. I mean, the Raiders are up 25-14 with about 8 minutes left in that game. You got to finish that game. I feel like there was one point in that game in the first quarter, Gruden went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 30. And I feel like that was just like calling out Carr and company. Like, if you can't get this yard here, you guys suck. They didn't get it. Still ended up winning that game. Just a weird team. Weird game. Entertaining, but a weird game. Rams, Bucks. If you listened to last week's podcast, we called it. We called it. We were like, I feel like this is a game where the Rams are going to have their way with Tampa, and they basically did. I was also a fool that bet Tampa second half, but that's just impulse gambling. But my original prediction was in the gamble category of called it. So called it. And then trying to think of some of the other games. I watched way too much of that Giants-Falcons game. I had the Falcons. Why did I have the Falcons? Why the Giants are in no shape, way, or form to be giving points to anybody. So I just watched way too much of that game. And yeah, I was a little disappointed in the Patriots game. That was a classic, growing pains moment for Mac Jones. James White's out for the year. The Saints have a great defense. They knew New England was just going to try to do short passes, and they were, they ate those up. So all in all, the decent week 3 in the NFL. You had some clunkers. You had some entertaining games. The Sunday night game was really interesting. Thursday night game was really boring. You had some witching hours. And, we're starting to see narratives being built. It's not like I don't really know much about football. Every year we just kind of build a foundation as the season progresses. to kind of diagnose.
Yeah, I thank you for the rundown, Andy, and both John, you as well. I appreciate your comprehensive breakdown of what happened last week. So that really there's not much for me to add to that. Let's go right to the picks as we go into week number 4 of the NFL. And tonight, because John did so well to start, and let's go ahead and go to his picks first. And John, let me know when you're ready, and then we'll ready for your picks to lead us off here on the contest.
All right, Dave, we'll start off here. Andy mentioned the Giants and Falcons game, and I did also watch too much of that because I had the Falcons as well. We're going to keep fading the Giants, and I'm going to take New Orleans -7.5. Not a huge fan of laying over a touchdown in the NFL in general, but this is just a bad matchup in my opinion for the Giants. They have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. The Saints should be able to get pressure all day long. Not to mention the Giants are going to be probably missing 2 of their top receivers, with Shepard and Slayton are probably going to be out for this game. And not only that, you're going to have the Saints really, so they're going to be their first true home games. Remember, their first game of the year against Green Bay was played in Jacksonville because of the hurricane. Winston has played well this year. He hasn't thrown for many yards, but he hasn't been making those horrible turnovers like we saw in Tampa Bay. He had a couple rough outings or a couple rough plays in Carolina, but that's just, Carolina has a much improved defense this year, and it's a road game in the NFL. It's a tough situation, but he rebounded nicely last week, and clearly the Saints are going to try to win this year with their defense and their running game, and kind of let Winston manage the rest of it. And it's just a bad matchup, in my opinion, for the Giants, and not to on the offensive line, on the defensive line. Not to mention the coaching, like Joe Judge going up against Sean Payton. Like, I know we give Sean Payton shit, but come on, this guy has no chance much against Sean Payton. So I don't like the hook here, but I mean, it is what it is. So we'll lay the 7.5 with the Saints over the Giants for game number 1. For game 2, I had a couple options here, but ultimately I'm going to go with the Ravens. They're +1 in Denver. They've kind of skated by so far this year on their wins, especially last week that we talked about. But I think that was just kind of a huge letdown spot after their win against the Chiefs, where they really played well, especially on offense. And now they're going into Denver, who Andy kind of mentioned it. Like, look at their 3 wins. Like, yeah, they're 3-0, but they beat the Jets, the Giants, and the Jaguars. Those are arguably the 3 worst teams in the NFL. And then, they did what they had to do. They won the games. They're 3-0. But again, how good are they? I don't think we would have said coming into the year that the Denver Broncos were going to be like a 10 to 12 win team. I think they're kind of an average 7 to 9 wins. And that's if they got good quarterback play. I mean, Drew Lock was just horrible last year, and obviously Bridgewater has been that kind of steady presence that he's been with other teams, and he's played great. But I think they're a little bit a step up in class this week, and I think if the Broncos had played some better competition and maybe were 1-2, I think this line might be Baltimore -2 or -3. So I think you're getting a really good value here on the Ravens. I think they're the better team overall. They do have some injury concerns that do worry you, but they've been able to piece it together so far. And again, they're very well coached. And I just think you're getting a little bit of value, and the better team is not the favorite in this matchup. So I think great value on Baltimore. So we're going to go Ravens +1, and then the first pick was Saints -7.5 for NFL.
Dave, you there?
Dave, I think you're muted.
Oh, again, look at me. Sorry about that, everybody. But yeah, John, I just wanted to say your point about the Broncos is very interesting, because they played some terrible teams to start the season. So I feel like this is their first big test. So good luck to your picks. That's a pretty interesting call. So Andy, I'm ready for your picks when you are.
Thanks. Well, first, from the teaser department, Green Bay, Tennessee, New Orleans. What could possibly go wrong? We'll find out in about 72 hours.
Add Kansas City onto that one, too. There's a fourth team for you.
Yep. All right. Well, game number 1, we're going to take Tennessee -7 against the Jets. It's on the road. I don't get this line. I might get burnt from it, but Tennessee -7. I feel like Tennessee should be giving more. Maybe it's -7 because it's on the road, but what home field advantage do the Jets have at this point? Who goes to a Jet game with rah-rah on their mind at this point? It's the 3 games the Jets have played have been so demoralizing. I can't see them having any optimism, any positivity, all that stuff. I know, I guess if you could have a weak point for Tennessee, it might be their defense. That could worry you. The only thing that Wilson has really shown is that second half game against Carolina, when he threw for, I think, maybe a couple touchdown passes. But besides that, it's just been a lot of interceptions, a lot of bad throws. The offensive line can't protect them. The Jets defense isn't terrible. It's actually pretty good, but they've just had there's too much stress on that Jets defense when that offense can't stay on the field long enough. They can't move the chains, and that defense just has to take the field. They get set up in bad positions. Tennessee, besides that first game where they looked embarrassed against Arizona. Chandler Jones had 5 sacks or whatever. They've kind of had that great fourth quarter against Seattle, and they did what they had to do against the Colts. Tannehill threw a couple two stupid interceptions against Indianapolis. You'll have to clean that up, but I think you'll just see a lot of ground and pounds, Julio Jones, and just I watched the Jets just to see how bad Kyle Wilson looks. Big finger me all you want, but sometimes you can't turn your eyes away from the Jets and the Giants sometimes. And who's going to win the first game between those two? We'll find out. Give me Tennessee -7, game number 1. Game number 2, we're going to go out to La La Land. We're going to take Cliff Kingsbury / Ryan Gosling getting 4.5 from the LA Rams. Just copying the theory. Take Kingsbury as an underdog. Obviously, Sean McVay does laps around Cliff Kingsbury. You all saw what Cliff Kingsbury did in the first half against Jacksonville. Sent them out for like a 68-yard field goal. Obviously, it was short. Jacksonville took it back for a touchdown. And Kingsbury is going to be the ultimate demise of this team at some point, but you're getting 4.5. Kyler Murray is slowly just ascending to the next level. They've got weapons on offense. I think Chandler Jones, he's due for a couple more sacks after that first game. What we've seen from the Rams so far is really impressive. Stafford and Cooper Kupp are forming quite the chemistry. I'm not sure what they're running. I think Sony Michel is going to be their premier back at the moment. Their defense is obviously very good. This is just a scenario where, the Rams have the Arizona game, Seattle game on the horizon. The NFC is very competitive. 4.5. Kyler Murray is just he could have a backdoor as we see Boba Fett take the lead for Toronto. But they got this. Don't worry, Cap. Yankee Magic's coming up. Give me Arizona +4.5 to complement Tennessee -7 week 4 in the NFL.
All right, Andy, thank you very much for the picks. That's pretty good. Let's go now to the remaining picks that are sent in via the text, and we're going to start with the picks from our friend Ron. I'm sorry. According to this thing, I'm supposed to go next. Okay, so we'll go with with my picks for week number 4 in the NFL. Let's do it. Okay, so I cobbled this together at the last second because I was a clown with the work and everything. But here's what I got. And I think I like these picks a lot. The first one I like a whole lot. The Cowboys are that team that the public rides very heavily. Now, I thought that they were going to have a letdown against the Eagles. As it turned out, the Eagles were absolute dog shit, so that did not apply to the normal nuances of a Cowboys season at home. So I guess you just had to wipe that one off. I was burnt on that one, but by then it didn't really matter because the rest of my picks had gone were just as bad, so it really made no difference what that game did. But enough about me. The Cowboys played wonderfully. Their defense looked great. They really held Jalen Hurts in check. I mean, just a couple of big plays, nothing really more than that. I do think it's going to be different against Carolina. This team is good. Darnold's having a very nice start to his season. And I think folks are going to start reading the press clippings about the Cowboys, both the fans and the players. They're going to come out flat. I guarantee you, whether they win or lose, they're going to come out flat. There's no question about it. It's going to be a tougher game for them than everybody thinks. And I think the Panthers are going to make it a close game. So we're going to go Panthers getting 4.5 at the Cowboys in an early game. It's far from a primetime game, so the Cowboys will be almost no energy to start the game going in. Just write it down. I'm telling you. So Panthers +4.5, game number 1. Game number 2 is a really strange line. And guys, I want to ask you about that after I'm done making the pick. But Washington is only giving a point at the Falcons. To me, that makes no sense. I don't really understand why there's such a... why are they not giving 3 or 4 or 5 in this game? Even if they're on the road, I'm a little surprised. So, I mean, unless there's just something I don't know, maybe there's an injury, maybe Chase Young is hurt and I didn't know about it. I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'm going to just take the value as it is. I'm going to go Washington giving 1 at the Falcons for game number 2. So again, Panthers plus 4.5 and Washington -1 for week 4. I really don't know what's going on there. Like,
if I had to guess, it would be the odds makers don't have respect for Taylor Heineke, the backup quarterback on the road, to be a favorite. But that's just my guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good guess. I don't know, John. Do you have an assessment on that? I mean, that's just interesting. That's a very
I would agree with that in theory. I absolutely. And plus, everyone was going gaga for the Washington defense heading into the season. Well, if you look back on who they played last year to build up those great stats, I mean, they played literally a litany of shitty quarterbacks all year. And when they actually played real defenses, they got shredded, or real offenses, I should say. And that's kind of what you've seen so far this year. So it was kind of a fluke for their defense. And I don't get that line either. I mean, I would have thought, I don't know. I would have thought the Falcons would have been a slight favorite in that game, to be honest with you. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's. Wait, you thought the Falcons would be the favorite? Interesting.
Yeah, I just don't see. I mean, Taylor Heineke favored on the road. It's just kind of.
Oh, I see. So you're
I don't get it. It's kind of like when the Jags were favored week 1. I mean, I know the Texans are a horrible team, but I mean, it's still a rookie quarterback and Urban Meyer favored in their first NFL game. It's the same kind of thing. I don't know.
I think it's fair.
I'm probably not picking that game for anything, but going to my head, I'd probably go with Atlanta. That's another good tease. Tease Atlanta up to 7.5. There you go. There's a 6 team on your teaser, Andy. We're gonna have all 16 games here by the end of the.
Ooh, Twitter's gonna be angry on Sunday. I can tell.
That actually is a great idea. Because I definitely don't, even at that, like I was saying, I was taking Washington here, but I don't think they're going to win by more than like maybe 5. So I think that's a fair point. So let's go to the rest of the picks. And we will go to Ron's picks next. And here they are for you, fellas. Here we go. So Ron is going to take for game number 1. I think he's a checker on a checker, isn't it? Yes. A checker on a checker with me. He's taking I almost said Redskins. He's taking the football team, Washington -1 in the game at the Falcons. So despite the idea that, and I don't disagree with John's idea that the Falcons should be favored in this game, and Washington hasn't really played that well to start at all, especially the defense like we were talking about. So, but with that said, I think that Ron's going to also take the leap with me, and we're going to go football team -1. Game number 2 for Ron is going to be the Cleveland Browns giving 2. And let me see who they're playing. I thought they were playing somebody good. Let me see. Yeah, they're playing Minnesota, who I don't know if they're good, actually. That's interesting. So, interesting call by Ron. So, Washington -1, Browns -2, week number 4. It's pretty good. Yeah, I actually liked both of those picks. Those are pretty good. Let's now go to the guest picker, and that would be Mike in North Jersey. And Mike has these picks for us for week 4. Let's do it. Okay, so for Mike, he's going to take a couple picks. Ooh, I think we got some more checkers and checkers coming. But before we get to the checker on checker, we go with a head-to-head pick. Mike is going to take Andy head-on with the Cliff Kingsbury theory, and he's going to side with the Rams, giving 4.5 at the Cardinals. So a direct head-to-head conflict here. Mike will take the home team in this one, giving the 4.5. The Ravens, his second pick will be the Ravens +1 against Denver, I believe. So that's checker with John. So to repeat for Mike in North Jersey, it's Rams giving 4.5 and Ravens getting 1. So a lot of agreement here, a lot of common picks, let's say, to start our contest tonight. Pretty interesting. And that wraps it up for the picks tonight. Let's go to the featured games. And there are a bunch of them. Let me pop in here and run them down. So I mentioned the Cowboy game. I really do think this will be an interesting one. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't necessarily think either side is a lock to win the game. But I do think it's going to be a close game. So to give 4.5 I don't buy it, but we'll see. I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one to start the day. Browns versus Vikings, same situation. Like, I'm not really sure which team's going to step up here. I mean, the Vikings have shown signs. They really should have won another game there in Arizona. That was a rough situation with the kicker back in week 2. Cardinals versus Rams. So you jump right ahead. Like, there was nothing else at 1 o'clock. Everything else is 4 o'clock and later. Cardinals versus Rams. Good divisional battle. I'm very curious about that one. I will be in the building for that game. First game at SoFi Stadium. Very exciting. First official game. And then you got Seahawks at 49ers at the same time on Fox. So it's funny that the doubleheader network really doesn't get much. They're going to get Ravens versus Broncos, and they also have the Steelers and the Packers. And I don't think either of them are necessarily the same eye candy that you have with the 2 NFC West games. But those are taking place at 4:25 Eastern on CBS. My Sunday Night Football, I didn't put it on this list.
That game.
Well, the Jet game. That's funny. I didn't put it on the list, but I do think that the
that's another teaser. That's just throw Tampa Bay.
Oh, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I think they're -7.
Nice. Oh, that'd be a big tease. That'd be like what, 13? That'd be pretty.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty serious. So Tampa Bay hosting it's Tampa Bay at the Patriots in Tom Brady's return to New England. We'll talk about that in a second. But I didn't put it in featured games because I didn't think the Patriots were good enough to make it. Andy, I'll give you a chance to rebut or agree with that. But then we close out with a pretty good game. I mean, we got the Raiders and the Chargers, classic rivalry, and both teams with a lot to play for here. Both of them off to great starts in the NFC West. That's Monday Night Football, 8:15 Eastern on ESPN. That's really great. So now I'm going to give it to you all to recap the featured games this week. Certainly a lot of juice. Andy, you want to take that first?
Yeah, without X's and O's or anything like that. But yeah, I'm just giving you a hard time. New England probably isn't that good this year, but Brady going back to New England, I think if he wants to go scorched earth, that could get ugly. He could have 10 big fingers and 10 big toes for big and the fact that the Patriots right now without James White, it could be a long day for Mac Jones unless they really get creative and innovative. They don't have Julian Edelman to do any wide receiver passes though, so it could be interesting. You know, I'm going to take Tampa, but as you mentioned with the games, yeah, Nance and Tony are going to be in Green Bay, and Buck and Aikman have the weekend off. So the number 2 Fox broadcast team of Burkhart and Jonathan Vilma, they're doing the Giants and the Saints. I think next week, Buck and Aikman are actually going to do Giants in Dallas because that'll be the Fox doubleheader week, and that's a 4:25 game start, and it's Dallas, so that'll be funny. You know, here's Joe Buck doing a Giants game. It's funny because arguably the NFC West games are the best, like they're up there, the best games of the week.
Yep.
Seattle, San Francisco, we get Adam Amin and Mark Schlereth. And Arizona, LA Rams, we get Chris Myers and Darryl Johnson.
Yikes.
Just not, you know.
It's not what you want.
Fox announcing crew, top to bottom, pales with the CBS guys anyway. But, I mean, I think Burkhart should have gotten, like, one of those NFC West games. But, you know, some people, you don't even have to listen to the announcers. But back to these actual games, I mean, if you like sport, if you like football, those 2 NFC West games are going to be very, very good. Browns and Vikings is sneaky good. I feel like that Browns-Vikings game is going to be pretty high scoring. I don't think Minnesota has a very strong defense. I think, you know, as much as we make fun of the Browns, you can't argue that they are, you know, pretty talented. They run the ball. Baker so far has kind of been, you know, kind of like a neutered Baker, not do anything too stupid. So that'll be interesting to see. Dave, you're right. The Vikings could be 3-0, but they're not. They're 1-2. And then, yeah, Dave, I agree with you with Panthers, Cowboys. I would probably take the Panthers. I'm impressed with Sam Darnold. We all like Matt Rule in college, and for fantasy reasons, selfish reasons, I got Chuba Hubbard on a fantasy team. I drafted him for keeper potential, and he's going to be thrown into the fire now because McCaffrey's out for, I think, like at least a couple weeks. So I'll be interested to see how Chuba Hubbard does with the a full workload. And I'm not a Raiders guy, but that should be interesting. That Charger Raider game might be one of those like last man standing wins the game.
Yeah, I'll show you one more thing, Andy, before I go to John. And here are the 506 maps. Give me a second to bring this up, but you can see that Kansas City, Philadelphia is going to get the majority of coverage in the CBS early slot. And I think it deserves it, but I just have no feel for how good the Eagles are. I feel like this could be a ragged game. I think if we had a better idea how the Eagles were, like if we knew if they're garbage, we probably would get Cleveland in that top spot. I just thought that was really interesting. Yeah, you're going to do that. Like Steelers, Green Bay, because it's Rodgers, it's the Packers, it's the Steelers. But honestly, John, I'll go to you next for your thoughts about this week's action. But certainly, the expectations are probably pretty low for as far as the Steelers are concerned. But you never know. Like you said, maybe they'll start to rise. They're good as an underdog. Let's get your thoughts about what's happening this week, John.
Yeah, Tomlin usually does his best when no one is picking them, or he's kind of using an us against the world mentality. So, like I said before, their Steelers, their defense is still good. I would say they're kind of a dangerous team heading into Green Bay. Obviously, I think the Packers will pull it out in the end. I think they're, especially if their defense plays like they did on Sunday night, I think they'll be fine. But it'll be a tough game for sure. I'm not, I think the tease angle is the way to go with this game. I think I could see like Green Bay by 3 or 4. I think that's a good way to approach it. But yeah, interesting week of games for sure. Not the no like marquee matchups, I guess, that like everyone's really excited for. But again, like I said before, like the NFL, every game basically in the first like 8 weeks is interesting for one way or another. And those 2 NFC West games will be excellent. Not sure what to make of the Cardinals-Rams game, and the Rams coming off that huge win over the Bucs. That they're going to be kind of a letdown. You would think not, because this is a division game, but that was just such a huge win and kind of a Stafford just making his presence known and that he's arriving basically. And and the Cardinals off to a 3-0 start. They easily could have lost the Vikings game, obviously, but they're playing great so far this year. So we'll see if Cliff can match wits with McVay for this game. I don't know. We'll see how that goes, but should be pretty high scoring. I would agree with that. I guess it really comes down to, in my opinion, if the Rams are going to kind of start sluggish or again have like a little bit of a letdown after that win over Tampa Bay. And then the other game there, the NFC West matchup with Seattle and San Francisco. I was reading something crazy that Seattle has like basically dominated the series in the last handful of years. Basically, San Fran's only got like 1 win in like the last 5 years or something like that. And it's a good buy low spot on Seattle coming off of 2 losses. The Tennessee game was obviously very disappointing since they had a lead at halftime, and then heading into the fourth quarter, really was a pretty big lead. And then last week, their defense just couldn't do anything against Minnesota, and again, I think they had an early lead in that one. But again, division game, like anything can happen. I'm seeing Seattle +3 right now. I definitely would kind of lean towards that if I was going to be picking this game. So those would be 2 interesting games to watch. And then in the early window, nothing really great for here. The Panthers and Cowboys is a pretty good matchup. The Panthers are a team that's been kind of again, we talked about the Broncos kind of having a easy start to this schedule. And the Panthers played the Texans without Tyrod Taylor. They played the Jets, and then they got the Saints at home coming off of that huge Green Bay win. Their defense dominated. So are they really as good as, one of the elite teams in the league at 3-0? I don't know. We'll see. Dallas certainly has looked pretty good so far. I mean, that wasn't even close on Monday night. I mean, and Dave, you asked the question, like, what do we know about the Eagles? I think the week 1 win, clouded our perception of the Eagles, that they're actually a good team when they beat the Falcons. The Eagles are horrible. What is this guy, Nick Sirianni, doing? I think they had 2 runs to the running back in the entire game. But you just can't win in the NFL having 2 runs from your run, 2 handoffs the entire game. It's not like they were down 40 points from the start of the game. I just don't understand the strategy. And the 2 runs, Sanders had a 15-yard run to on one of them. I don't get it. But anyway, that's a game the Chiefs should win. If the Chiefs can't blow out that Eagles team, there's something really, really wrong with the Chiefs. I know their defense is bad, but they should win that game, by 10 points. But the other matchups there. I talked about the Saints and the Giants. Browns Vikings is really interesting. I mean, Minnesota is 1-2, but they easily could be 3-0. I remember they lost in overtime to the Bengals. They lost they missed the field goal against Arizona, and then obviously they beat Seattle last week, so they could be a 3-0 team. And the Browns, they have all the people were picking them at the beginning of the season, and they've played well so far to start the year. They almost beat the Chiefs, then they beat the Browns. I'm sorry, beat the Texans, and then they blew out the Bears last week. So they've done what they had to do so far. So that's a very even matchup. Not sure where to go with that one. So some very competitive games this week. So it'll be a good day for the NFL Red Zone channel. That's for sure. And Dave, you didn't put the Thursday night game on your featured list. You have the Jags and the Bengals tomorrow night. Should be a
that's actually right. You're right.
There.
You're totally right about that.
Buck and Aikman are spending their time this week with the Jags and Bengals.
Yeah, but they're gonna.
Okay.
Did you guys know that?
You know what?
You guys know that Clemson and LSU
the NFL
played?
Network only slate.
You were saying, Andy?
I was saying they're. So did you guys know that Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence played in college?
Yeah,
That's
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
But this is so. You guys have noticed this is the last of the NFL Network only matchup. So there's been the shit Thursday night matchups for the first 3 of the NFL only.
Yeah.
And then next week we start getting into some good ones. I think it's Rams and Seahawks next week. So that'll be so much more entertaining Thursday night action. But hey, you know what? I will watch Jags and Bengals over Miami and Virginia tomorrow night. That's for sure. I just cannot stand the ACC. Just get it off my television.
That's rough. You're right. Gosh, so that's a good segue actually to our NCAA recap. So let's get right to it. I mean, seriously, what do you even say about the ACC these days? I mean, it's absolutely dreadful. Clemson kind of said it all when they were getting kicked. They were kind of playing footy, right? They were playing footsies. Or feetsies with NC State, and they lost. They lost in double overtime, and that's the best team, quote unquote, that they have. North Carolina can't get out of their own way. And Miami. I think you mentioned it already, John. They've just been a massive disappointment. So, John, you want to pick it up from there and just tell us about what happened last week in college football?
Yeah. Dave, put one of those scoreboards up on the screen again. I need to refresh my memory.
Yeah, sure thing.
The top 25 games. But while you're doing that, I'm going to mention, I saw something yesterday on Twitter that the AAC is going to add 2 new schools potentially as soon as next week. And those schools are going to be Colorado State and Air Force. What the hell is the point of adding those 2 schools to the AAC? I just do not understand that whatsoever. They don't add anything in terms of elevating, the conference in terms of football. I mean, I guess you could say Denver's their media market. I just do not understand that whatsoever. You just lost 3 of your best programs, 3 of the best group of 5 teams, and your response to that is you're going to add Colorado State and Air Force. Like, I'm so glad UConn left that conference. That's just a joke. If I was the AAC commissioner, I would make a call to Appalachian State, Coastal Carolina, and UTSA. Done. Like, those are 3 up-and-coming teams. You got the San Antonio market in Texas, and those 2 other programs are Myrtle Beach. You can't beat that. And 2 up-and-coming, or really good group of 5 programs. I cannot believe if they're going to add Colorado State and Air Force to the AAC. That's just ridiculous. But anyway, I digress. So let's talk about last week. Yeah, the AACC is just a complete joke. Like, who's going to win the league this year? Is it going to be? It could be Boston College. It could be Wake Forest. It could be NC State. Like, spin a wheel, because one of these teams are going to be in a big bowl on January 1st or whatever it is, because the Clemson offense is just completely inept. I mean, they only scored 21 because they got to overtime. They had scored 14 in regulation. They can't move the ball. The quarterback has not been as good as they had hoped, DJ, and it's just a broken offense. And their defense is still pretty good, so we'll give them that. But they're not making the college football playoff, obviously, and who knows for the rest of the conference. Again, like, you could literally see like Wake Forest or BC or NC State winning the league. So I guess that's kind of good for some new teams getting in the mix this year. But you got to take one of them for a big bowl game, and it's just going to be kind of ugly there in early January. But we talked about how there could be more chaos this year, and kind of we're proving the point each week, which you got to love. I mean, Oklahoma barely survives West Virginia. You got to feel they might be taking a loss soon. They lose to Kansas State, it's seemingly almost every year, and they're playing them this week on the road in Manhattan, looking ahead to the Texas game. And they did have that loss against Arkansas, but Arkansas has looked pretty good, so that's not as bad as a loss as you would maybe have thought a couple of weeks ago. And Texas and Oklahoma, they play a 3-point game every year. Like, someone's kicking a field goal to win that game. So you could easily see Oklahoma losing that. And then you had Arkansas beating Texas A&M, and A&M was a team that people thought could have challenged in the SEC, and now it's kind of Arkansas taking that, flipping roles there, and now they might be the challenger. But obviously they have a huge game against Georgia. We'll see what they're really made of this Saturday. I tend to think the Georgia defense is going to do what they always do and come up big in that. But what a great turnaround from 2 years ago when Arkansas was just a complete laughingstock, and now here they are, like they're in the top 10. It was an incredible job by Sam Pittman and the rest of his staff to get them turned around so quickly. Iowa continues to just grind out wins, and it's just not pretty. But they have no explosiveness on offense. But they just use their defense. They move the change. Like 2 weeks ago, when I was in Las Vegas, they were playing. Not Colorado. They played Colorado State this past week. The team they were playing, I think it was Kent State. Yeah, they were playing Kent State, and they had like a 17-play, 99-yard drive. That's like pure sex to Kirk Ferentz. That kind of drive, like that's what he loves. That guy. And that's how they play. And I could easily see them losing at Maryland on Friday night. I think Maryland is a very much a live dog in that game. So I think they're only given 3.5. And then you had the other big game of the weekend was that Notre Dame Wisconsin game. And talk about a quarterback that needs to be benched. Why the hell are they still playing Graham Mertz? I just don't understand it. I feel bad for the kid. He had an unbelievable first game in his first start ever last year against Illinois. I think he had like 5 or 6 touchdowns. And then he got COVID, and then he has not been the same since. I mean, they could have easily won that game. They were like almost, I would say, dominating it heading into the fourth quarter. And then kickoff return, pick six. Like, Notre Dame won the game 41-13, and you look at the stats, and there's no way like they would score 41 points with those stats. So with Wisconsin, they need to bench him. I don't know who else they have. It's just a disaster. And then may get big fingers, but Notre Dame is not that good. Like, we're going to be on Cincinnati this week for sure. So they've been doing what they had to do to win the games, and they've been opportunistic with their defense. So we'll give them credit for winning the games, but from just a pure number standpoint, I do not think they're a top 10 team. And I think Cincinnati, we've been on them. We like seeing the group of 5 teams being in the mix here, and you can just tell by the line they're favored at Notre Dame by 2 points. So I think that's where we're going to have to put our action on Saturday. Not going to be an official pick, but I'm sure you're going to get to that in a little bit. The preview of the games coming up, but that's kind of where I would be leaning for that matchup.
Love it, John. But it's interesting also because Cincinnati also looked like kind of week 2 the week before when they were playing Indiana. So you're like, oh man, this team doesn't look as good as everybody said either. But I think of the two, I probably do trust Cincinnati more right now because, man, Wisconsin was garbage. Andy, I'll give it to you for your thoughts too.
Yeah, I mean, if I probably lost like 2 years of my life just being so angry watching Notre Dame games this year, but that's fine. This is the life we choose, and I'm still pissed off at that Purdue game. I've got flashbacks to the Toledo game. Big finger time, but I mean, I guess we just have to accept that Notre Dame is just going to be this crummy eyesore that just doesn't get out of the way, and they have to be in the picture until they just look like absolute fools. It's almost like a few years ago when it's a little different, but kind of similar when, like, you knew Oklahoma was going to advance, but then Oklahoma was just going to get their doors blown off in a big game because they give up like 55 points or whatever. Notre Dame plays totally different than Oklahoma, but they're just so crummy, and that independent schedule of theirs and the fact that they've stolen 2 victories in September keeps them in this national picture. And I cannot wait till they lose. And I hope it's in a couple days against Cincinnati. I will be rooting so hard for Cincinnati. Big game for Fickle. And we'll be tweeting the angry Brian Kelly face a couple times on Saturday. But going back to last week, there was some entertainment. I had a good feeling about Arkansas. You know, Texas A&M had that backup quarterback that doesn't do much, and Arkansas kind of dominated that game. Their starting quarterback, who's basically like Cam Newton 2.0, he got hurt. I'm not sure what his status is against Georgia, but I still kind of like Arkansas this weekend against Georgia, getting a ton of points. I'm just going to ride Arkansas until, that train kind of collapses. Pittman's got some good mojo going, and in college, you just ride that mojo till it falls off. Under the radar game that has nothing to do with national implications, but the Texas San Antonio Roadrunners versus Memphis Tigers was very entertaining. The Roadrunners came back and won that game. They were down like 21-7 at halftime, but that was an entertaining game. West Virginia, Oklahoma. John mentioned Oklahoma. Something's rotten in Oklahoma. I'll be taking Kansas State this week. Something's rotten in Oklahoma. I'm not sure what it is. West Virginia probably should have won that game outright. The coach was kind of juggling quarterbacks in the second half. Not sure why. That game, they were booing Rattler, all the Sumer fans down in Norman. That was a game that wasn't pretty to watch. It was Fowler. It was Herb Street. I couldn't take my eyes off it, though. Locally, for the tri-state area folks, good, like, hey, you did it. You hung in there. Shout out to Rutgers. You probably could have won that game outright. I'm not sure what Shiano was doing on that 4th down play in the first half when the quarterback pretended to have miscommunication, but you hung in there and you covered, most importantly. Good job, Rutgers. Let's see what you guys can do against Ohio State this weekend. I'm not sure what to make out of Texas. Took them. They killed Texas Tech. Maybe Arkansas is just that good. We'll have to keep an eye on Texas moving forward. Trying to think of some of these other games. Yeah, Dave, when we were talking about USC last week, I totally forgot Jackson Dart got hurt, so we had to – the Clovis experience on Saturday was a disaster. Great win for Oregon State Beavers. Now they're giving 2 against Washington. The line opened up Washington -4. Now it's Oregon State -2. I got it at Oregon State +2 a couple days ago. So we'll see what happens this weekend. But Dave, that's a bad loss by your USC.
Yeah, wasn't close.
I know, like that game was home too. That game was.
I know.
I'm not sure what happened. They just, it was like, oh, USC's letting Oregon State hang around. Next thing you know, Oregon State's up by like 14. I'm not sure what happened there. That UCLA Stanford game was, Shaw made a comeback in the second half. I think they tied the game, and then the next drive, UCLA had the ball. First play, UCLA's like deep in Stanford territory. Oregon and Arizona, that was the Pac-12 after dark game. Oregon was up like 14-0, like literally like 2 minutes into the game, maybe 10-0. They got stalled, but they didn't cover. But that's a big game this weekend. Oregon, Stanford.
Disruptor.
That line's weird. I don't know who to take yet. Shaw is getting 8, and we know what Cristobal is all about in the second half. He gets a little tight, but I'm not really sure where to go yet. And then Arizona State kicked butt against Colorado. I actually took that game based on like Checker tweeted that the transitive property scenario, Minnesota beating Colorado by a ton, and then Minnesota losing to Bowling Green. And John's like, bet the house on Arizona State. So I'm like, yep, I'm on board with that. So shout out to John for that tweet. Yeah, it was a entertaining day. Florida State lost again. Trying to think what happened on that Friday night. Let's just scroll up a bit.
We mentioned. Did you mention the Minnesota game yet?
Yeah, in passing, they, PJ Fleck. I'm borrowing this joke off Twitter. There's a leak in PJ Fleck's boat. They might have just shot their load that first game against Ohio State. But huge letdown game for Fresno State. They ended up winning, but UNLV +31 on Friday was good. Oh, yeah, just to piggyback on how crummy the ACC is, because going back to that college preview you guys did last month, like when you guys were like, well, if Clemson fails, who's going to ascend? Is it going to be Miami? Is it going to be North Carolina? Is it going to be Virginia Tech? Well, like, no, and no. UNC has 2 losses now. I'm not sure. I didn't watch any of that game against Georgia Tech, but they got 2 losses. Like, that was probably like an LOL Mac Brown type of game that Texas was getting sick of. Miami, although their 2 losses are out of the conference, but I think De'Aaron King is out for some time. And then Virginia Tech, they can't really trust them. I know they beat North Carolina, but then they looked like garbage against West Virginia. And jury's still out on Virginia Tech. But that Orange Bowl, there's going to be some team out of the ACC. Remember a couple years ago, it was the Florida-Virginia Orange Bowl. I think Virginia was like 8-4. That could be one of those instances this holiday season. Someone's got to come out of that ACC, and they have that relationship with the Orange Bowl. Maybe it'd be a Notre Dame ACC Orange Bowl. Give me that, but we'll see. It was a fun Saturday, and we're looking forward to this Saturday. Do it all over again. Groundhog Day.
Yep. Yep. And I will admit that this time around we're gonna have some more marquee matchups as opposed to last week, where I feel like they came out of the they kind of came out of the ground. So let me show you what we have as far as the featured games this week in college football. Yeah, we got a bunch of good ones. Take a look at this. So we start with Arkansas versus Georgia at noon. That's probably my favorite. Well, no, actually, both of these are my favorite matchups. Like, actually, all 3 of these are my favorite matchups. They're all pretty good. Like, I mean,
they're all your babies.
I know, seriously. Number 8 Arkansas versus number 2 Georgia at noon at on ESPN. Number 7 Cincinnati versus number 9 Notre Dame at 2:30 Eastern on NBC. You all talked about that. And then number 12 Ole Miss against number 1 Alabama in Tuscaloosa at 3:30 on CBS. And Andy, I'm very interested to see what you think of that Bama's, and I guess you would say slow to start the season. I mean, not as dominant as you would expect. Number 21 Baylor versus number 19 Oklahoma State at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. The ABC Saturday Night Football game is Indiana at number 4 Penn State. And Arizona State UCLA, sneaky good. I will be in the building for that too. Yeah. That's on FS1 at 10:30. I'm actually kind of interested in that one. I wonder who wins. You know,
you got a good weekend coming up, Dave.
Oh yeah. No doubt. I love it. Like 2 games in the building, they're good games too. Like I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun. So, let's go to John. Let's get your thoughts on this week's action. I mean, definitely a lot to unpack, John. What do you think of all these games?
Yeah, great schedule. I mean, plop yourself on the couch from noon to midnight, and you get to see everything from Bama and or Arkansas, Georgia, all the way to that UCLA. Arizona State game, but the SEC games are kind of are going to be a shakeup unless if one of those 2 road teams ends up winning, either Arkansas or Ole Miss. Otherwise, it's kind of going to be status quo with Georgia and Bama on a collision course. Bama definitely has not been as impressive as would say previous years. I mean, the Miami game was very impressive, but I think we've come to find out that Miami just isn't that great of a team. Bama kind of showed some holes against Florida, their defense especially. And really, Bryce Young has just been he's been okay. Like, I wouldn't say he's been amazing. He's been doing a lot of kind of checkdowns and whatnot. But, the Bama, they're still super talented. And, their defense, like, it did show some holes against Florida. And, Lane Kiffin was watching that game trying to scheme up something to take advantage. If you remember the game between these 2 teams last season, it was just an all-out. It was like an arena football game. It was. I have to go check. I think each team scored at least 50 points. It was just unbelievable, just going back and forth up and down the field. And you would say that Matt Corral is probably even better this year than he was last year, and their offense is just tremendous, and their defense has improved. So they're throwing out a spread at you of 14.5. It's hard not to take Ole Miss with that hook. And then the over-under is just an insane 80 points. I don't think I've ever seen an over-under that high, especially like in an SEC game. I know that Bama LSU game a few years ago was pretty high. I don't think it was 80, that's for sure. So that's going to be a very interesting game to watch. And then the Arkansas-Georgia game, we just talked about how Arkansas is on this amazing run and Pittman's doing such a good job there. And they're kind of going into the immovable object for the Georgia defense. I think they've only given up 1 touchdown all year, and they're just destroying teams at the moment. So, I mean, obviously Vanderbilt's not. I don't know if they would even qualify as an FBS team at this point, but their other games they just haven't really given up much of anything. So we'll see if they can keep that going. The spread's high in that one too. I mean, 18 does seem like a lot, but if Georgia's defense holds Arkansas to say 10 points, and you got to figure they'd be able to score enough to cover that. So I'll probably be staying away from that one. We did talk about Cincinnati and Notre Dame. I do agree with you, Dave. Cincinnati was not that impressive against Indiana, at least in the first half anyway. They were just very sluggish. Their defense didn't play well. I watched all that game at the sports book. But a great comeback in the second half. They really got things figured out. And I think maybe they had some nerves heading into that game. I don't know, because it was kind of like one of those things, like they had to win the game to stay in national title contention. So maybe a similar thing here. They're just kind of tight to start, and then maybe open things up after that. But I would definitely on Cincinnati for this matchup, based on what I've seen so far. Baylor, Oklahoma State, you have on there. That's a tough game for me to get a read on. 2 teams that I really haven't seen that much of. I mean, that Boise State, Oklahoma State game I know was a huge shit show just from what I was reading on Twitter with the referees. I was at the UNLV. Yeah, I can tell. I was at the UNLV Iowa State game when that was going on, so I don't really have a frame of reference for that. But I did bet Tulsa against Oklahoma State in week 2. I think they're getting 14, and they almost won. I mean, Oklahoma State hasn't been impressive on offense anyway. I mean, their defense has been kind of carrying them. Baylor had that upset win against Iowa State last week, so that was good for them. The 2 teams I'll have to watch this game just to kind of see what's going on with either of these teams. I won't make a pick or a bet on this one. Indiana and Penn State you have on there. Again, a lot of these teams in the top 10, like you could easily see them losing at any point. Like Iowa, you could see going down. Penn State. We talked about Oklahoma already. I mean, do we really trust Oregon to run the table? I certainly don't. Like, there could be some huge shakeups here between now and Thanksgiving. So this is going to be a great season. Like, all right, you got Bama and Georgia, but after that, everything is up for grabs here. You would think Penn State is probably going to win this game, but I see the spread is 12. It feels like a little bit too much for me. I mean, Indiana has a pretty good defense, and really Penn State, who have they played so far this year? Like, all right, they played like Ball State, they played Villanova, they played Auburn on that home game on that Saturday night. But again, like Auburn hadn't played anybody before that, so I think Penn State might be a little bit overranked. So I might go with Indiana in that one. And then you have that nightcap, UCLA, Arizona State. Not sure really what to make of that one. I do like both teams, so I think it's just kind of a game to sit back and watch. I mean, we did have Arizona State against Colorado last week. That was a good pick for sure. And UCLA got back on track against Stanford. But again, like I'm not really sure about this game. I think this was I actually have two of my picks this week are both the other late games that night. So we'll be more into those other ones for wagers, and we'll just be watching this one. But I will mention we were talking about Minnesota earlier. Like, talk about the fishy line of the week. So Minnesota just loses as a 31-point favorite at home to Bowling Green, and now they're on the road at Purdue, and Purdue's -2. Like, that's just screaming to me to just bet everything on Minnesota, because they're just begging you to take Purdue. So I might have to be on Minnesota with that spread. Not going to be an official pick, but that's just kind of one I wanted to throw out there. And then your underrated mid-major game of the week that I'm looking forward to watching, Liberty at UAB. Now, that's going to be a good matchup. This is UAB's first game in their new stadium. They've been on the road the first month, or they had a neutral site game, and then they've been on the road for 3 weeks. And now they're home against Liberty. And if you followed UAB recently, they cannot play against Power 5 teams. Every time they go up against a Power 5 team, whether it be Georgia or Tennessee or Miami, they just get crushed. But then they go against these Group of 5 teams, and they're the ones that are like the dominant team. So I'm seeing UAB -3 right now. I think that's another play that has to be put in my opinion. So those are just a couple other games I wanted to mention. But yeah, another full Saturday of college football. And, we always say it, the season goes by so fast, so you got to enjoy every single one of them. And, it should be some interesting games for sure this weekend.
Yeah, I love all those calls. And I think it's interesting that you're basically pointing out a lot of potential traps. And I think the UAB game's a good example. The Minnesota game's a great example. That's a great example. I'm surprised you don't have it fixed. I thought you might, because I know your anti-Brom scenario might have played into it. No? All right. Well, let's go to the picks then. And we will start. Oh, John, we're going to go right to you. Okay, so John, let's get your picks for week number 5 in college football.
All right, Dave. So I said my 2 picks were some of the later games of the night, so you have to wait up a while for these. So I think this will be the first time ever on this show that someone will be actually picking this team and not against this team. I'm going to take New Mexico State. They're getting 27.5 points. And this is just a complete pick against San Jose State. Now, San Jose State, coming into the year, we did our preview. We said, they're going to be a great offense with Nick Starkel. Played amazing last year. He's going to be, fifth-year senior. They're going to have a great team. Well, their offense this year has been nothing short of absolutely dreadful. They scored 7 points against USC, and we know how that looks now after what some teams have been doing to USC recently. They just scored 3 points on Western Michigan, who has one of the worst defenses in the MAC. They gave up over 40 points and 600 yards to Pittsburgh. And then they could only score 17 at Hawaii. If you look at their advanced statistics, their advanced metrics, and this is I've been nerding out on this kind of stuff lately, but every single metric, they're over 115 in success rate, explosiveness, havoc allowed, line yards, stuff rate. All this stuff is what measures how an offense is successful and efficient, and they're just horrible in everything. So I don't see how a team that can barely score is going to lay 27.5. I'd rather have this 28, obviously, but 27.5 points. Now, I'm not saying New Mexico State's a good team by any means. They're one of the worst teams in college football, but they haven't been as bad as we had thought coming into the season. They had that horrible game against UTEP in week 0, but after that, they've actually covered a couple spreads. They played okay against San Diego State. They only lost 28-10. They covered against New Mexico, getting 20 points. They only lost by 9. And then last week they were getting 17 against Hawaii. They lost by 20, but there was a garbage touchdown late in there. So I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but if San Jose State, I don't see them being able to say give New Mexico State 10 points. Like San Jose State's got to score 38 to cover this spread. And I just don't see it. So maybe I'm completely misreading, how good or bad rather New Mexico State is. But I just see it as just way too many points. So give me New Mexico State plus 27.5 for the first game. So, and then for the second game, and Andy had mentioned this one, I'm going to take Oregon State. So I do wish I had got that early line with the plus 2.5. Unfortunately, that is flipped, and now they're minus 2.5 against Washington. And, we talked about them possibly being an improved team heading into this year, and that certainly has come to pass. They did lose their opening game against Purdue, but since then they played really well, especially their offense, and their run game, I think, was just ran over USC last week. And I can see the same thing happening here against Washington. Again, I'm going to go back to the advanced metrics here, and Washington does not grade out well in 3 categories: line yards, power success rate, and stuff rate, which means their defensive line is inadequate, and going up against this Oregon State rushing attack is not going to be a good day for them. Washington has got back on track after the first 2 rough performances, but look who they played. They played Arkansas State and they played Cal. Not exactly the greatest competition, and now here they are going on the road. I think that the money has flipped this into where the bet should be here. So we're going to go Oregon State minus 2.5. So our picks, we're going to go with New Mexico State getting the boatload of points plus 27.5, and we'll go Oregon State minus 2.5 for our picks for college football week number 5.
Thanks for the picks, John, and good luck, of course. Let's now go to Andy, and let's get your picks for week 5 in college football.
All right, well, first, Tommy style, I'll definitely take Minnesota. I hate Jeff Brom, and I'm still angry about that Notre Dame game. I think Ole Miss is going to cover. I think this is not quite the peak for Lane Kiffin, but he's got a so-called NFL prospect at quarterback, and he probably wants to stick it to Saban. I think that game has the potential to be really close because what we've seen from Alabama's defense hasn't been all that great, especially that Florida game. Really can't go much of what they did last week or against Miami. I think that game will be pretty entertaining. Not quite a bonus pick. You said you wanted my thoughts. That's my thought on the game. But the actual picks, let's do the picks. I wrote a bunch just in case they're a checker on a checker. And I like these all. So I do actually like these a lot. I'll bet on them, obviously. But game number 1, we're going to take Louisiana Tech plus 20.5 versus NC State. NC State coming off that big game against Clemson. I didn't really watch a snap of it because I hate the ACC. But I've seen a little bit of La Tech this year. Skip Holtz, he's like a werewolf, half Mongo, half good coach. They lost a game to SMU at a Hail Mary. Their offense is really good. Their defense is lacking. I get La Tech and SMU confused because they kind of play similar styles. But I think La Tech getting 20.5. Why? NC State naturally might have a letdown situation. 20.5 is a lot of points. We know the one good thing that Louisiana Tech can do year in and year out is move the ball downfield. I'm not really sure how good North Carolina State or defense is, to be honest with you, because we know Clemson's offense is so bad. So that is just my hard-hitting analysis for game number 1, Louisiana Tech getting 20.5. And then game number 2, about Oklahoma State, they have covered 2 games in a row despite not scoring a single point in the second half.
What?
Yeah, that's a true story. Either Kelly in Vegas or Stookie tweeted that, and I was a sponge and I soaked that up. I don't think that's going to happen in the third week in a row. I'm going to take Kansas State getting 10.5 against Oklahoma State. Now, I'm taking Kansas State getting 10.5 because, like John mentioned, I really don't think Oklahoma State's that good. They let Tulsa hang around. They should have lost to Boise State, and the game last week. Who did Oklahoma State play last week? I forget. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Kansas State is getting 10.5 from the other Oklahoma team, the Oklahoma Sooners.
I was gonna say, I thought Baylor was at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, my bad. But
No worries.
I'm taking Kansas State. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm still bitter about the Kansas State Oklahoma State game last week. But I'm taking Kansas State this week again against Oklahoma because I don't think Oklahoma is something's rotten in Oklahoma. Like I mentioned when we were breaking down last week, they try to score a touchdown every play. They got to kind of scale back the playbook. Spencer Rattler is getting booed. He's gone from Heisman hopeful. His own fan base is angry at him. Lincoln Riley is a great coach, but they need to kind of redo things because they have not looked impressive. Kansas State, what do I know about Kansas State? Not much. I know Bruce Snyder's not there anymore, but they still kind of play like Bruce Snyder's still there. They don't make mental mistakes. Their offense is pretty methodical. It's not very explosive, but more times than not, they like to kind of have the possession, control ball possession, manageable third downs. Like I said, they don't score. They don't move in chunks. They like 3rd and 3. They'll probably have to settle for some field goals, keep Oklahoma off the field. And like I said, until Oklahoma looks like Oklahoma and wins a game, they look bad against Nebraska. And look how bad Nebraska's looked in some of these other games. I'm rambling now. Give me Kansas State getting 10.5 in the first game. La Tech plus 20.5. 2 underdogs in the week 5 of the college pigskin.
I love it, Andy. Good luck, and thanks for the picks, of course. And I think it's
I like Hawaii too.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Fresno. That'll be one of those. John will be he'll be betting on that too. It'll be one of those Hail Mary games. 11 p.m. start.
Salvage games. Love it. I love it. So good luck, everyone. Now let's go to. Is it my turn? Yeah, I think it is.
I'm gonna be trying to find a stream for New Mexico State and San Jose State. Apparently, it's not on any television station. I'm looking at stuff, so that'll be an online streaming game for me. Apparently, at about midnight, trying to watch that game. So we'll struggle with that. I'll just mention quickly. So I'm doing this pool this year, where it's an SEC survivor pool. Andy would like this. So you have to pick, there's 14 weeks and there's 14 SEC teams. So obviously you have to take a different team every single week. And obviously the easy pick this week is to go with Vanderbilt playing UConn. But Vanderbilt is so terrible and UConn was actually improved since they fired Edsel. They almost beat Wyoming last week. So I'm considering not going with Vanderbilt this week and going with either South Carolina playing Troy or Texas A&M playing Miss State, but and then just hoping either UConn wins or I last long enough that I don't have to use Vanderbilt because this is really their only winnable game. So it's a very interesting pool in terms of that kind of strategy. But I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's going to be an interesting week for me.
That's a tough call because even Troy can be pesky. So I don't even know what you do with that. Andy, how would you play that? That's an interesting decision.
Well, if you took away the Wyoming game, I would take Vandy, but Connecticut, I watched my fair share of that game, but I was I want to see this go down. Wyoming going out to Connecticut, not easy travel from Laramie to Connecticut with layovers and stuff. But anyway,
I thought Wyoming would just run all over Connecticut, but I don't know. They hung in there, but Vanderbilt is pretty bad. Yeah, that's an interesting shot. South Carolina's bad too, but you gotta use them at some point. So use South Carolina. Why not?
Yeah, John. I gotta just say before you. I know you had. It sounded like you were gonna say something, but man, I whiffed on that Vanderbilt prediction. I thought they were gonna be decent this year, or at least better than they usually are. They are atrocious. Bad job out of me. But anyway, John, did you have another point?
No, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to take a couple more days to think about this. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I kind of want to go the contrarian route and not take Vanderbilt and whatever. Just either pray they lose, the UConn actually continues their improvement and wins, or I don't have to end up using Vanderbilt. Or if I have to use them the last game of the year against Tennessee, well, fuck it. If I'm still in the pool by then, I'll just do it. I'll just use them then. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, fun, interesting pool.
Oh yeah.
A friend of mine sent it to me. I was like, all right, I'm in. I'll play along with this. So, and it includes the SEC championship game too. So you want to save like Bama or Georgia or one of those teams for the SEC championship. That's another little wrinkle into it. But yeah, it's first time I've done something like in a specific conference like Survivor pool. So it's kind of interesting.
It's a great pick for a conference too. You got some real challenges in there. So good luck, John. I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. Let us know next week if you could. Yeah, that'd be fun. Very good. So let's see, where are we at? Oh, I think we're up to the Dave picks. Okay, so let's do my picks for Week 5 in the NFL. Let's do it. All right. Okay. All right, away we go. Let's begin. So it took me like 10 minutes to figure this out, and I kind of whipped this together before we started the show. But I like my picks. I like these. In fact, I even have a bonus pick. So we're going to start in Indiana, at West Lafayette, Indiana. I will play the pick, John. I'm going to take Minnesota getting 2.5 after losing to Bowling Green. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that. But hey, when you're that bad and you're playing another terrible, or maybe not terrible, another disappointing team, what goes down must come up. So I'm going to give it a chance. Big 10 underdogs to me continue to be great value throughout the season. And I feel like this is the spot that would probably cater to the underdog. So we're going to give it to the Gophers. Everyone's down on them. I think they'll actually win this game. So Minnesota plus 2.5. Game number 2, we are going to reluctantly take the disruptor of Stanford getting 8 versus Oregon. I hate the pick because I don't want them to do it. But I have to play this significant value. I just can't see Oregon pulling away from this team easily, especially on the road. I mean, I know Stanford has no home field advantage, but it doesn't matter. It's still on the road. I've seen so many times Stanford beat Oregon at the farm. And I know that Stanford's not that good, and I know Oregon's significantly better on paper. I just can't trust Oregon here to cover. So we're going to take Stanford getting 8. And it's like one of those picks where it's like, I'm taking it, but I hope it doesn't happen. Well, here we are. I just feel like it's too big a number for me to ignore. So those are my picks. Minnesota plus 2.5, Stanford plus 8. Tonight, I'll have a bonus pick for you. I will also play Andy's suggestion of Ole Miss getting 14.5 at Alabama, because those two teams tend to play a lot of close games. It's very interesting. I mean, not all the time, but man, every other year you see a game that's a classic. So it's going to be an interesting one. So to repeat for the Week 5 picks, Minnesota getting 2.5, Stanford getting 8, and for a bonus pick, not going to count on during the contest, Ole Miss getting 14.5 for Week 5. Okay, so now we've got Ron in New Jersey, and let's get his picks. Okay. Ron is going to take Missouri giving 2.5 against somebody. I didn't catch who.
Tennessee. I like that one.
Oh, I do like that. It's against Tennessee. I'll give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. Nicely done, Ron. Game number 2. John, I think you'll like this one. UTSA giving 21.5. 21.5. So one more time for Ron. Missouri minus 2.5. UTSA minus 21.5. Did I switch the scene over here? Oh, I didn't. Okay. Well, those are Ron's picks, everybody. Those of you watching on YouTube. Week 5. So now let's segue to the guest picks from our friend Mike in North Jersey. And Mike, I hope you're doing all right out there, wherever you are. Here you go. Mike has these picks for us from college football. Game number 1, he's going to take the Hogs. Arkansas getting 18.5 for game number 1. For game number 2, he's going to take it, and this is we all kind of were wondering if this is going to happen, but he's going to take Iowa, giving 3.5 in a Big Ten meeting between them and I'm trying to remember who. Oh, Maryland, yeah. So Mike in North Jersey's picks are Arkansas plus 18.5 and Iowa minus 3.5. And that does it for us tonight. Pretty good. So let's give it to everybody for final thoughts. We'll start with John again. John, what do you have to say as far as the week in review for football picks this week?
Yeah, very good show, Dave. And we've covered a lot here, a lot of games. We touched on a lot. I'll just mention one other one here. I'm just looking through the list of college games this weekend. Another kind of trappy line. So Florida State is giving 4.5 points to Syracuse, an 0-4 team who just looked like complete garbage the last 3 weeks, giving 4.5 to Syracuse, who just had a big win over Liberty on Friday night. I hate it, but it's telling me to take Florida State, which I don't want to do, but I think that's what the line is telling you to do. But yeah, so a very interesting card of games. Should be, like I said, you've got to cherish every weekend here when we get the football season. I will mention, obviously I was not on the program last week. I was kind of still recovering from my trip to Las Vegas. I will report the Allegiant Stadium is amazing. I saw UNLV play Iowa State. It was a complete blowout. I mean, just, it was like 48-3 Iowa State. I did bet the under, so I did have a winning ticket, but it was, the stadium is just fantastic. And they weren't even selling like some of the fourth deck seats because, you're not going to get enough fans for a college game. But there was at least, I'd say the breakdown of fans there was probably 75% Iowa State and 25% UNLV. It was crazy how many fans they had there. Just a very, very passionate fan base who travels. So good on them. I mean, who can go wrong with the trip to Vegas for sure. So that was a lot of fun. Other than that, I mean, just my usual activities there. The sports betting was quite good. I mean, but of course, when you leave the sports book, there's the flashing lights of the machines and the tables are calling your name, and then you kind of lose what you won there. But that's that's how it goes. But it was a good time.
Cool.
I did look at the schedule, UNLV's future schedule. So if I go on the same weekend next year, they're home against North Texas. So I'm gonna guess not as many fans in the building for that matchup. So maybe I can get a cheaper ticket or sit like on the sidelines for that one if I decide to go again. I maybe see a more competitive game, but just a tremendous stadium. I actually would like to go see the Raiders. If I'm there the weekend the Raiders are playing, I definitely would go to a Raiders game. Just a incredible stadium. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that was my quick little report on Allegiant Stadium, and yeah, it should be a great weekend of games, and looking forward to it. Hopefully everyone has some winners, and we'll see you again next week.
John, thanks for the recap of Vegas. That's really cool. I'm glad that overall that your gambling went pretty well, and good stuff as far as Allegiant Stadium. That sounds great. I can't wait to go over there now. That's awesome. I'm glad I'm glad you had a good time over there. So let's go to Andy and let's get your final thoughts as well.
Yeah, just piggybacking on Iowa State. There's been some mild to big disappointment so far in college football, like Iowa State, UNC, and San Jose State, based on what you guys were all jazzed up about on the preview compared to now. Campbell and Purdy their shine has worn off pretty quick. But final thoughts, like John says, we need to. The years are fast, the days are slow. You gotta really enjoy college football and the NFL. But yeah, it's already be October this Saturday. The first world problem is you bet like literally 20 games, and then the West Coast could be 9 a.m. to midnight with the Hawaii game, and then at the end of the day, you're like, I don't even remember. Like, I watched so many games. Like, it's like I didn't watch any of them because he got so much going on. And it's such a blur. But it's fun. And then with the Ryder Cup, yeah, after Friday, it just wasn't Europe. It wasn't in the cards for Europe. To borrow Mad Dog's theme, Europe, they got some ancient guys, no fans, and the Americans team, no Tiger, no Bubba Watson, no Webb Simpson, but no Tiger. Like, I feel like without Tiger, the other players could like breathe a little more, proverbially speaking, and they're just stacked. I mean, Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele, Cantlay, even clown like Daniel Berger, like those guys are freaking good. Ever hear of a guy named Jordan Spieth? He's pretty good too. Those guys, I mean, no wonder why they were minus 200. But I still took Europe, and but it's okay. We'll take them again in Rome in 2 years' time. But that course was tough. The Europeans just couldn't get any no mojo to stick. Lee Westwood was old. You could question some of the decisions Harrington made. Like, Westwood and Matt Fitzpatrick is not a pairing I would have set up. I'm not the captain, but this is 2 years in a row now. Fitzpatrick has just looked awful in the Ryder Cup. Fitzpatrick, he's like got like a 14-year-old body, but he looks like an 80-year-old man sometimes too. Just like he just lacks rah-rah. I don't know. And Hatton is just too much of a head case out there. Hovland is good. You know, the future's bright for Victor Hovland, but Lowry showed you some life. Rory was 0-3 until everything that could go wrong for Europe did go wrong. And after Friday, when they were down, whatever they were down 6-2, it just, they weren't going to recapture the magic of Medina or France. It just wasn't in the cards for them. And the American team is a lot easier to root for without the aforementioned Bubba and Webb and Fowler and some of the old guard. These guys are a lot more fun to root for.
Yeah, I mean, you did still have Bryson DeChambeau, right? But even past that, it's still a pretty fun team. So I'm with it.
I'll jump in quickly. I know I said I really didn't watch much of it, but just overall between both the teams, I mean, the American team is pretty, like Andy's saying, like they're set up for the next 3 to 4 Ryder Cups with those guys. Like that's going to be a tough team to beat. And you look at Europe, okay, like you're not going to be seeing Westwood and Poulter and Casey and Garcia, I'm guessing, in the next few Ryder Cups. Like, who's replacing those guys? Like, I literally don't know. Like, who's the next level of European player that's going to take their spot? Like, obviously there could be some guys that kind of pop up in the next year or two and play well and join the team. But like, who is it right now? Is it like, I don't know, Rasmus Højgaard is your next guy? Like, honestly, I have no idea who's the next level of. I have to look at the list, like who just missed the cut for the European team. It's a tough scene at the moment for the Europeans. Like they got Rory and Rahm and Hovland, and that's basically their entire team. Yeah. So I actually would I was looking at the President's Cup team.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Years. Like the international team. Yeah, the international team on the President's Cup looks pretty good compared to the European team for the Ryder Cup. That's actually a match that should be played. The Europeans and the internationals, call it whatever. Let's see that match.
I'm in.
Yeah, the international team is this is the year that they could probably do it. They got Anster Ortiz out of Mexico. The South African contingent's always strong. I mean, Asians, it's no pushover. I'll be definitely into that when that rolls around.
Yeah, can you imagine a team with Hideki Matsuyama, Louis Oosthuizen. I mean, even though he doesn't do great in the majors, I mean, he's still pretty good. Like, that would be a good team. That'd be fun. I do want to give a shout out to Justin Thomas too. He had some great shots during that tournament. So give it to him too. So it played out the way that the odds maker said it would. So pretty good. Thanks everybody. This has been fun, and thank you for the kind words too, John. I mean, I agree. This was a good show tonight. Very solid shows. We really covered a lot of material. So, fellas, have a great night, and we'll do it again next week. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck with the picks.
Thanks a lot, John. Take care, everybody. All right, so that's our show tonight. Andy, John, thank you very much for your time, everyone. And, we say goodnight. Should be a really, really fun weekend of football. So glad to have everybody here to cover everything. And we send our best to Ron as well as we continue. And Mike as well. It's good to see his guest picks. I am Dave Medina. You can catch us on Twitter at DITCOW, on the web at DITCOW.com. And if you have not subscribed to this podcast yet, and you're listening on the audio side, look for us at Dave in the City Out West on Apple Podcasts. On YouTube, you can find us also at Dave in the City Out West, or DITCOW for short. And you have all the video replays of this program. We'll see you next time.